comment on that?
Thank you, Your Honor. Is it okay if I remain seated so that I can see my notes?
You can.
Thank you. As the court knows, the jury returned a verdict on January 20th, 2026 for guilty on both counts of the information. Count 1, murder in first-degree domestic violence, and Count 2, murder in second-degree domestic violence. As previously indicated, Count 2 was an alternative theory of felony murder, and they do encompass the same course of conduct, so we are vacating Count 2. And as indicated, the standard range with an offender score of 0 on Count 1 is 240 to 320 months. The state is requesting 320 months of prison, which is the high end of the standard range, as well as 36 months of community custody. We would ask for DOC to calculate credit for time served. As the court knows, we start at a presumption of mid-range, which in this case would be 280 months, and then go up or down from there depending on the aggravating or mitigating circumstances. The state's position is that a high-end sentence is absolutely warranted in this case, given the egregious lack of remorse demonstrated by the defendant. Even now, Mr. West has not accepted responsibility for his actions. Not once has he acknowledged what he did to his wife and the mother of his children. Every opportunity to show humanity or remorse has instead been used to reinforce the same implausible story that he manufactured from the beginning, a story that was inconsistent with the evidence, a story the jury soundly rejected. His behavior is that of a man deeply invested in preserving himself, not in remorse or the truth. That is echoed in the sentencing memorandum and letters of support filed by defense in this case for purposes of sentencing. In the 8 letters submitted to the court in support of the defendant last night, and the one additional one this morning, Marcy's name was not mentioned one time. What distinguishes this case, and what makes it particularly aggravated, is how far Mr. West was willing to go to protect his own self-interest after killing his wife. He called first responders, his close friends and co-workers, involving them unwittingly in a cover-up of a staged medical event without their knowledge or consent. He traumatized them while knowing that they likely had no chance of saving Marcy. And then, to add insult to injury, he suggested at trial that their life-saving attempts somehow caused the injuries that the medical examiner determined was the result of a vascular strangulation. He deflected blame onto the public servants that rushed in to help the very woman that he had harmed. Not only did he take a loving mother away from her children, what is even more troubling was the predicament he placed those children in. The way in which blame was deflected onto at least one child further showed his lack of remorse. The court will recall from trial the nature of Ted's prior statements, and that when in trial, such testimony drastically had been changed following his time residing with the defendant in this ward. He blamed the contusion on the back of Marcy's head on his son, in yet another improbable attempt to save himself at the expense of the children that Marcy loved. Mr. West's conduct after the murder mirrors the selfishness that motivated it. It demonstrates that he doesn't care who he hurts, so long as it furthers his interests. Marcy cannot speak for herself. Her children lost their mother, whether or not they fully appreciate how or why. Her family lost a daughter, a sister, and many lost a dear friend. On top of the grief of losing her, they had to listen to the defendant blame everything and everyone except himself. They deserve the dignity of a sentence that acknowledges the harm done. Not only the harm done to Marcy, but the ripple effect of the cover-up. The state respectfully submits that the defendant's behavior, his total lack of remorse, his deliberate exploitation of others to sustain his lives, warrants a sentence at the highest end of what the law permits. Thank you.
All rise. Court is back in session.
Thank you. And then the opportunity to review the statements from the bond on behalf of the state and a number of character letters filed on behalf of Mr. West. Your comments, Mr. Walker.
Thank you, guys. Well, Judge, in doing these matters over a number of years, But, and in speaking for Mr. West, he maintains his innocence in this case. I am his attorney, that is my position, so I want to preface what I'm going to say with that as a background. There is a tendency to characterize a person forevermore as the person who was found to have done by a jury the worst thing that he could have done. But that is not all Mr. West is. He led a life of many years of responding to calls at all hours of the night. He helped thousands of people overcome acute illnesses and injuries. He was a dedicated professional. He helped motivate other professionals. He was an asset to the community, no question about that. And his, however their relationship may have been, they did raise two wonderful children. You saw them here, you saw them through the trial. They speak well, they're very poised. They are an asset to the community, regardless of what they may say. So, Your Honor, the standard guidelines envision, this is the standard guideline for premeditated murder in the first degree. So there's a bunch of ways of committing it. If I were to design a way to make it the least egregious, it would be something close to this. The state's theory at trial was that it was an argument that escalated into a strangulation that because of the duration of the strangulation amounted to time to, enough time to reflect and form intent to kill. So that's what they relied upon. If that's the case, this is something that's almost more akin to murder in the second degree, but the jury did find murder in the first degree. So, but it would be, I suggest, toward the lower end of the range. That is why we are requesting 240 months.